You have the young, idealistic libertarian who wants all the drugs to be legalized and inevitably points to caffeine or wine for why all the hard drugs should be legalized. And yet the consequences of the hard drugs are just so severe. I've heard it again and again from the people I've interviewed. You become something that you would not have believed possible. I've heard people saying, I became something I hated, something I swore I never would be. I was stealing from my children, or I was stealing from my parents. I was violent and abusive. They turn you into someone who is unreliable and who can only think about getting that next high. And drugs have certainly gotten worse over the years. I think it was Andy Bales who talked about meth and fentanyl being like a whole new level of what they were doing to people. The old days of being the functional alcoholic, which there are some, or the functional drug user, I think are fewer and fewer and further in between, because meth and fentanyl, which are the two dominant drugs that the people I've interviewed seem to have been enslaved by, they make you someone that you would swear you would never be.
Has that changed in your career? You've been doing this for 20-ish years. Do you feel like the contributing factors to homelessness or the associated factors have changed? That nowadays you're hearing more fentanyl and less a fifth of vodka a day?
Certainly. Part of it is they make you feel so awful when you try to get off them. It's just a wicked thing, because you get high and then when you say, all right, I'm not doing this anymore, you feel so wretchedly sick so quickly. I remember one guy who was well along his way to recovery, but he had been addicted to meth. When he first got to the mission, even after detox, he was awake for something like 2 to 3 weeks, could not sleep, was a zombie all day, basically, so exhausted and so tired. And of course, he's not just dealing with his body not being on this anymore, but with all the emotions of trying to change his life and coming to terms with the pain he had caused his family, which is enough to keep anybody awake. But then this chemical reaction in his body when his brain wasn't getting what it wanted anymore, what it had become accustomed to having, where he was just exhausted all day. And then the second he lay down at night, just like wide awake, just staring off. It was just brutal. That would be enough to get me to want to give up and relapse. So you see why so many people like try to get over it and then just relapse. I mean, every addict says they want to get off it and want to get better. But when it comes to the rubber hitting the road of how unbelievably, unbearably sick they feel, it's understandable why they remain trapped.